Well, welcome to our celebration of diverse women in pharmacy, featuring three of our incredible alums. I can't wait to introduce them to you in just a second. I really am so very thrilled that you are here with us today. And this is being recorded just so that you are aware of that. I am the new interim dean at the College of Pharmacy. I'm thrilled to be in this new role. I started December 7th, so been in just about 4 months and really enjoying every minute of it. I'd like to share a couple housekeeping notes. If you would, please mute yourself, and that just helps to prevent feedback. And as I stated, the main discussion will be recorded and will be shared in the next couple days. After we hear from our panelists, I have several questions that I'll be asking all of them. We're going to break into small groups to provide an opportunity for dialogue and Q&A with each of the panelists individually. But during the presentation, if you have a question for the panelists, please type it in the Q&A module, which if you click on the little ... in your lower right-hand corner, you'll see Q&A. Or you can certainly save your questions for the breakout and then ask them directly. And so now to introduce our panelists, we have with us tonight Cynthia Johnson, who is a graduate of our Master's in Cosmetic Science program in 2018. And she is founder and CEO of Cindy J. Cosmetic Labs, LLC. We also have with us Lynette Payne, of the 2018 PharmD class, and she works at Holzer Health System in the 340B outpatient pharmacy. And we have with us Susan Seto, a 2009 graduate of the Master's in Drug Development program, and then also a 2013 graduate of the PharmD program. And she works as a clinical staff pharmacist at the TriHealth Rehabilitation Hospital. So welcome to our three panelists, and we're so very happy to have you with us this evening. So we're going to start off by asking each of our panelists to kind of provide a brief introduction of themselves and talk about their career pathway, and kind of specifically, though, thinking about these following questions. How has your identity impacted your career pathway? And what types of things do you have to think about that your counterparts may not have to think about? We're going to start with Susan and then Cynthia and then Lynette. And so Susan, I'm going to turn the floor over to you.
Thank you, Dr. Heaton. Like Dr. Heaton said, my name is Susan Seto. I'm a clinical staff pharmacist at TriHealth Rehab Hospital. And I pretty much had a really long road to my role as a pharmacist. Initially, I started off getting my master's in drug development and research. So initially, I really wanted to break into the field of pharmacy and do more of a research approach to it. I really wanted to kind of interact with people that were diverse and getting really involved in clinical trials and being involved in that aspect. So while I was getting my master's, I did work for a CRO, which is a contract research organization called MedPace, and I worked in the data management department, and I pretty much helped mine data from clinical trials while I was getting my master's. And when I was done with my master's, I realized that I really wanted to dive a little bit more into the clinical role and kind of interact with more of a diverse patient population because I wanted to be a clinician on the pharmacist end and deal with a lot of people that look like me. And so I went ahead and entered the PharmD program and completed that. And so how my identity has impacted my career pathway, I really, at a young age, I wanted to be in the healthcare field and help a lot of people. Initially, I wanted to be a doctor, a pediatrician specifically, but that wasn't really in the cards for me as I got older and was in my college pre-med courses. So I considered pharmacy, and that's where I landed. Some things that I feel like I think about that my counterparts don't have to is obviously just being a woman of color. in the work field, and pretty much having to, sometimes it seems like you kind of have to prove yourself a little bit more than others. And so that's what I really experiences my experience throughout this course, throughout my career. I've dealt with a lot of different people, a lot of different areas of pharmacy. So that's one thing that I've definitely have encountered.
Thank you, Susan.
Thank you.
Hello, everyone. Am I coming in clear?
Yes, you are.
All right. Thank you so much, Dr. Egan. And also thank you, Dr. Susan. That was an amazing introduction. And I'm pretty sure Lynette will also have a great introduction as well. For everyone who don't know who I am, I'm Cynthia Johnson, founder and CEO of Cindy J Cosmetic Labs, LLC. And for those of you out there who are in the cosmetic science industry, you may have a similar story like myself. When I was 15 years old, I didn't really know what to do with a chemistry degree. My professor said, you have an eye for chemistry. What do you want to get into? You have the athletic ability, you have the innovative ability, you need to think about your career path. And I didn't really think about it until he said this. So I thought about the cosmetic route. Are there cosmetic chemists out there? Are there cosmetic chemists who look like me? So I wanted to be one of the leaders in the cosmetic science industry because I just didn't have that mentorship. So working in these contract manufacturers and innovating different products for different people, I thought to myself, what about the smaller businesses? What about the startup businesses? I'm making all of these types of products for big businesses, and the smaller businesses do not have the same resources. So that's why I came up with Cindy J Cosmetic Labs. And since 2018, it has been a great ride. Definitely impacting a lot of small businesses. I've been featured in different magazines and also giving back for events like this as well. And in my career, my identity has definitely impacted, again, with the startup businesses and small businesses, but it has impacted students. I always receive DMs or direct messages on social media. I always receive emails from students saying, I've never met a cosmetic chemist who's Black and also a woman. So I felt very good about that. I feel like I have to make a change because there aren't a lot of cosmetic chemists that are out here that look like me. There's a handful. So we have to be more accessible to students and to also people that want to start their own business. When I was working in contract manufacturing, like Dr. Susan said, always trying to prove yourself. But from the outside, I always felt like there was not so much a threat, but there was always a question. Why does she wear her hair like that? As all of you know, I have locks in my hair. So I've always had that question. How long did it take you to get your locks done? Or how long did it take you to get your braids done? Can I touch your hair? Does it hurt? So things like that, I always had to answer that question. I always had to educate with that question. So I would say that my hair has definitely been that key factor of, wow, this is a Black woman. This is a Black cosmetic chemist, and she's authentic. She doesn't have to wear her hair a certain way or straight or whatever the case may be. She can just be authentic.
Thank you, Cynthia, so much. And Cynthia, I just want to let you know, at least for me, I don't see your video coming through, but I didn't want to interrupt you.
Oh, I see my video on the right side, but I'll fix it on the back end.
Okay.
Okay.
Lynette, can you see her video? I'm just checking with you.
No, I can't.
Okay, all right, just making sure it wasn't me, just to make you aware. Well, thank you, Cynthia. That now we see you. I saw you earlier, and then you had a little construction symbol on you, a little triangle there. All right, Lynette, you're up.
All right. Thanks, Dr. Heaton. So I'm Lynette Payne. I graduated in 2018, and currently I am an outpatient pharmacist for a 340B pharmacy. We're attached to a health system called Hoser Health System, and it's in a rural area in southeastern Ohio. 340B, just to clarify, just means a pharmacy that basically we serve low income or underserved patients. So we get special pricing for our drugs so that our patients who don't have insurance can afford their medications. I also had a long road to pharmacy. So I knew I liked science when I started my undergrad degree. So I got a degree in biology and chemistry, and I got a job right out of school. And I worked as a chemist for a pharmaceutical manufacturing company. And I loved learning about the drugs and I loved the science behind it. But part of my identity is that I'm a people person and I like to communicate with people and teach people and explain things to people. So I was really missing that, just working in a lab pretty much by myself all the time. So I started looking at different career paths, and that's when I came across pharmacy because I was like, well, that seems like I could, pull in the science background, but also be able to work with people. So I started the program at UC. And as if there's students on here now, you guys probably know you do a lot of personality tests to kind of try to help gear you into the direction for what a good fit would be for your career path. And I thought I was going to do something super specialized like emergency medicine or ICU. And I kept getting ambulatory care. And I'm like, I'm not doing ambulatory care. Like, I want to do something specialized. Well, on my rotations, I was at Hawksworth, and that's a 340B pharmacy, so very, very similar to what I do. And I loved it. And so I'm like, okay, I really get to teach people. It's a lot of times patients who don't have access to healthcare professionals or easy access, or especially where I work, there's a lot of sometimes trust issues with healthcare professionals and, just the general public because they don't have a lot of education and background in medicine or healthcare. So I really like that kind of bridging the gap, like being able to build relationships with people and, just having them trust healthcare professionals. So I ended up finding a job in a 340B pharmacy, and that's where I work now. Some things I have to think about, similar to what our other two panelists said, is feeling like I have to prove myself. So a lot of the other healthcare professionals that I work with, especially in this area, are older men who have been in their positions for a long time and are very confident in what they're prescribing or how they practice. But, starting to have confidence and feel comfortable in being a part of that conversation about our patients and, in healthcare. And I just feel like being a young woman, sometimes you like overcompensate or try to be like overly like, oh, I'm okay. If you don't like what I have to say, that's okay. Like just getting past that is something I feel like we as women have to think about that maybe our counterparts do not. So that was my main thing. And then just one other thing that I have to think about is family life. So a work-life balance. That was another reason why I went into pharmacy, but that's a constant balance with work. Just trying to make sure your work stays at work and you still have enough time for your family. So those are the two main things that I feel like I have to think about that my counterparts do not. So thank you.
Well, thank you, Lynette. We're just going to keep you on the hot seat, okay?
All righty.
Question, we're going to go in a different order. We're going to do Lynette, Susan, Cynthia. And so, Lynette, what obstacles or hard lessons have you engaged with and how did you overcome them?
Okay, so the biggest that stands out for me with this question is equal pay or pay that I deserved. So when I accepted my first pharmacist job, the pay got mentioned in my interview. And when I got my offer, it was significantly lower than that. But I felt like I didn't really have, any room to negotiate because I didn't have experience. So it didn't matter how good my grades were, how hard my rotations were, how involved I was in my internship. I really didn't have any room to negotiate. So I just accepted it and I figured, okay, I'll revisit that when I can. So what I did for the whole first year of practicing as a pharmacist was kind of document everything that I could so that when it came time to ask for a pay increase, that I would be prepared and not just simply asking for a pay increase. And I want to add that while I was doing all this, I kind of learned what other pharmacists made, just like from hearing conversations or people just straight out saying what they made. And I was like, oh, so even people like a male pharmacist who only has 1 year more experience than me is making like a decent amount more per hour than I am. So that was pretty frustrating. So I'm like, okay, I'm going to document all this. I'm not going to be afraid to have that conversation. So I started documenting. First thing would be like metrics. So I learned the system and had a mentor pharmacist who showed me how to do data analysis to kind of show the number of prescriptions that I checked were comparable to the pharmacist who had been there for 10 years. I kept track of all of the MTNs that I had done, the number of extra shifts that I picked up, the number of extra responsibilities that I picked up inside my work environment and outside my work environment as far as pharmacy. And I had all that ready to go when I went into my review after the first year. So I went into my review all confident, and I had a great review, nothing negative. So I'm like, okay, obviously they're going to say yes to the raise. Well, they didn't. They said the way that the company was, they would have to go before a board and it wouldn't get approved right now because of the financial status of the company. So, I mean, I was pretty bummed about that, especially knowing that I made significantly less than male counterparts or counterparts that didn't really have much more experience than me. But I kept chugging along. I kept doing what I was doing. And within another year of that, I got offered a position without even having to interview. And when we talked about pay, I straight out said, this is what I'd started working at. I want more than this, and here's why. And it wasn't even a question. As soon as I got my offer, I got the offer that I had asked for. They agreed on it. So just kind of standing your ground, thanks, knowing your worth, and just like have the facts there to show why you deserve what you deserve, because you do. So just being confident in that, and find a mentor who will help you through it. If you are not, I'm not very good at confrontation, especially with stuff like that. So, it's a small victory to even present that to somebody. So don't be afraid to do that and stand up for what you're worth.
Thank you, Lynette. I love that. You got to ask for what you're worth, right? Well done. All right. Susan, what obstacles or hard lessons have you engaged with, and how did you overcome them?
I think one thing that really stood out for me, just thinking about this question, was my first interview after pharmacy school. It was for a position at P&G that I really wanted. And the interview process was very rigorous. So I had to come up with a presentation and present it to a panel of people that were in this department that I applied for. So it was already intimidating, just completely being out of school, fresh out of school. And then also the panel that I was talking to in this department were older, and they were all majority male, white workers in this department. So, it was already a group of people that I felt like I couldn't really identify with. And I was younger, I was a woman of color, and they probably were thinking, I don't have that much experience, or, I'm fresh out of school. So I did my presentation. It was very nerve-wracking, but I felt like I nailed it. But unfortunately, I didn't get the job. And one of the things that they told me it was the lack of experience that I had. And even though I had a rotation at P&G, and I had that background in my master's in drug development and research, I still, personally, it felt like I just wasn't good enough. So it was kind of deterring for me, but that just gave me a little bit more ammunition to do a little bit better and get more experience, start networking with people who are in the pharmaceutical industry. And so that's what I did. So I actually got a position as a clinical pharmacist. That was the second job that I interviewed for. So I was in clinical pharmacy for a couple of years and did a little bit more networking. And I was able to get a research position from that. So it was definitely, I'm sorry, I'm getting some feedback. I don't know if anybody's
Susan, hold on, Susan. Okay. All right, now start speaking again. All of a sudden, you sound like Darth Vader there.
I'm sorry. I don't know what happened there. but after a couple of years, I was able to get a research position as a research pharmacist. And I felt like with a lot of networking that I did, a lot more research and just working a little bit harder, I was able to get to where I wanted to be. And unfortunately, that didn't really work out for me, but I felt like I had such a challenging experience, and it was kind of traumatizing for me a little bit because I wanted that position so bad, but it just really made me realize that I had to work a little bit harder. There were other avenues available for me, and I would just have to, work at it a little bit more. So in addition to now, I was in that research position and I went back to clinical pharmacy doing that. And then I also decided to have a consulting business. I started my consulting business a couple months ago. So I would be able to contract myself out and work for myself and be in the pharmacy industry as well. So those are a lot of factors that really led me to where I am today.
Thank you, Susan. Cynthia, you're up.
Yes, so when I was a manager at a manufacturing plant last year, of course, this is during the pandemic, this is during the George Floyd movement with the police brutality, this is during the Black Lives Matter movement. It was a lot going on. It was a lot going on as far as an emotional distress, especially on coworkers, on colleagues, on peers. And it was something that I felt like I needed to stand up for. So a lot of my colleagues, a lot of my managers didn't really understand the outrage. They didn't understand what was going on with the police brutality. Like, why is this happening? And at first I thought to myself, I don't want to be the one to educate. I didn't want to be the one to say, you should know better, or you should know what's happening in the world and how it's affecting your colleagues. But then I thought to myself, I would be selfish not to put myself out there and let people know what is going on and how we as an African American community are feeling about everything that's going on during this whole pandemic, during the police brutality. So there was a situation where I held a manager's meeting and I basically told all of my managers what PTSD is. PTSD is something that, a lot of people think militants go through, people that serve the military, but it is something that Black people in particular have went through for 400 years. We're still in that mindset that we're scared of the police or we're scared of our white counterpart. And it's something that has to be stopped. So I gave an example of how I was feeling throughout this whole thing. I told them that one day I went to.
Cynthia, we lost you. Cynthia, we lost the volume.
Can you hear me?
When you started your story, we lost your volume altogether.
Okay, can you hear me now?
Now we can.
Oh. All right, it's going in and out. Okay, can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay, perfect. So there was an incident where I went to Ocean City and I was actually stopped by the police and I was scared. I didn't know what would be the next step. And I want to say that the speed limit was like 35 and I went 46. So I was going over the speed limit. But I didn't even think about the speed limit. I thought about, what is this police officer to do to me? What is he going to do to me and my friends because of the whole Black Lives Matter movement? So I gave that example and people really had this look in their eyes of sorrowfulness. They said, this is sad. I cannot believe you went through this. So you have to kind of give that education to people so that they can understand what you're going through. So that is the type of situations that a lot of us are going through. And I'm glad that I was able to stand up and say something and talk about it. And it needs to be talked about. We need to have this conversation, because if you ignore the conversation, then it's only going to get worse. So for me to stand up in front of my managers, I think it's me and a young lady who is also Black as well. We're the only two Black women in this managers meeting. And then there's like 3 or 4 Black men, and then the rest are all white. So we had to have this kind of voice where we're here, we're willing to work with you, but you have to understand our obstacles as well.
Well, thank you, Cynthia. And we're going to keep you on the hot seat just a little bit longer and start off our next question with you. Can you talk about experiences with inclusive leadership and offer advice for enacting this style?
Something that happened after I gave that education, we did talk about diversity and inclusion. So yes, you may have a diverse group of people, but you may not have those people included in different types of aspects of the workplace. And I'll give the examples of the workplace because that is the majority of where I experienced the inclusion. I told people, let's help technicians or let's help people build their resume. You know, let's make it stronger. A lot of people that worked at a manufacturing plant, they work since.
Oh, we lost your volume again. Cynthia, we lost your volume again. Cynthia, we can't hear you. Now we can hear you. But okay, now you're back.
Okay, computer.
Now we got you.
Okay, so we decided to put together resumes, help people with resumes during our inclusion activities and during our inclusion program. Oh, I keep losing. Is my mic still on?
Yes, we can hear you. Now we can't hear you. No, now we can't hear you. Well, I tell you what, while Cynthia is working with her technology, Lynette, we're going to go ahead and move to you and ask you the same question. Can you talk about experiences with inclusive leadership and offer advice for enacting this style?
Sure. So I wanted to talk about being on the receiving end of inclusive leadership because I think that's really important and that's the biggest experience I had with it. So it was with my former manager. She was also a young woman, and she always made sure to. Oh, sorry, I think I'm like echoing.
Well, now we lost your video.
Oh, am I back yet?
We hear you, but I don't see you.
Okay. Well, I'll keep going then if that's okay.
Yes, that's fine. We can hear
Okay.
you.
So, my manager was always willing to listen to my goals and what goals I wanted to reach and help me get there. So, obviously, I would always be putting in the work, but I started out, which I hadn't mentioned yet, I started out as a per diem pharmacist. So, living in a really rural area, there's not a whole lot of pharmacist jobs. So, I just worked as needed. And even just having a position like that, she never disregarded my goals or what I wanted to do. So I worked really hard. I picked up a bunch of shifts. I would pick up different responsibilities. I became involved with the Ohio State Board of Pharmacy, and she noticed those things. And as a job came up for a clinical pharmacist position, I she reached out to me because she knew that I liked the clinical side of things as well, and I actually got an interview for the position. And I got the interview over pharmacists who had been there for years and years, and I just think that goes to show how important it is to just work really hard, even if you don't take a traditional route. So I didn't do a residency. I had my daughter the day before graduation, so that was not an option for me at that point in time. It didn't mean that I was going to just completely change what I wanted to do with my career. So just working hard, communicating your goals, and finding somebody who will help you get there, a mentor, it will all come to fruition. I interviewed against somebody who had a residency and who had worked in that position as a resident, and I did not get the job. But after I got, denied, they said, okay, well, what can we do to help you reach your goals? So I started training at the Coumadin Clinic. So I would still get to do that clinical experience with, working in the outpatient pharmacy as well. And then I took on this new position, and now I'm taking roles in different, clinical aspects too. So you don't have to take a specific route to get to your career. You don't have to do like the typical route. But if you can find a mentor who will help you get there, I think that is super helpful. And I think the important part of sharing that is that you can be that for somebody too. So I try to take on students and do what I can to help them reach their career goals. And I just think if you can learn that from somebody, someone does that for you, you're really appreciative of it, and then you can pass that on to somebody else. So my advice would be just to, give back what others have helped get you to.
Thank you, Lynette. Susan, to you with the same question.
So I'll talk about my experience in inclusive leadership, like on the pharmacist end, being a supervisor of technicians. So I had an experience where one of my technicians, she was African American, and she felt like she was getting picked on a lot at work. A lot of people felt like she didn't really do her job as well, and she really thought it was because of her color. And since I am a woman of color, she felt like she could really confide in me and talk to me about how she felt. And so some traits that I felt like I needed to demonstrate is just to really be empathetic and really hear what she said, and listen to what her issues were with her job position. With that, I listened to her issues, and as I was listening, she was able to really open up to me, and I found out that it was more than that. I felt like she had a lot of other problems that she had to deal with, she had health problems, and she wasn't able to really do her job as well. So people didn't really understand that because they didn't know her health issues. So she was actually able to open up with me and tell me, why she couldn't do X, Y, and Z in her job position because of her health. So that was one thing that I was able to kind of, work with her and kind of communicate that to my other coworkers, so they didn't feel like she just didn't want to do her job. So that was one thing that I realized with her. And just some things that I've noticed in my position as a leader, as a pharmacist, is just making sure that we are open-minded to all people who have different backgrounds, because we are managers, we are leaders in our profession. And so if we give our technicians and our coworkers the environment to, sorry, my daughter's distracting me, but if
We
we're
love working at home. It's good, Susan. That's what balance is all about.
It does. But yeah, so basically what I was trying to say is just being able to be empathetic and show some humility with our technicians and people that we manage. It gives them a good environment to open up with you and share with you what they might be dealing with personally that might affect how they are at work. So I think that's very important.
Well, thank you. And we are up to our last question. And Susan, we're going to stay with you and ask, what resources have helped you reach your goals along the way?
So resources that I've had were, I had mentors. I had a very good family support. I have a sister who's in the healthcare field. And growing up, I had my parents who were pretty much very supportive, and I was able to do a lot of volunteering experiences, at a local children's hospital, looking at sick kids and working in hospitals and volunteering. So mentorship there. And then as I entered into pharmacy school, just getting more involved in student organizations. I was involved with SNAFA, when I was in pharmacy school, and I was able to network with a lot of pharmacists and a lot of companies within the Cincinnati area. So I thought that just being able to network and also having a strong family support, I was able to really continue to stay driven in my career, and also excel in my career and be where I'm at today.
Thank you, Susan. And Cynthia, how's that technology? Have you switched something there?
Yes, I had to go on my phone.
Are you on your phone? Okay, actually, we see
Yes.
it though.
Okay.
All right, same question for you. What resources have helped you?
So along my cosmetic chemistry journey, I've learned about the Society of Cosmetic Chemists, and that is an organization that a lot of cosmetic chemists come together and talk about different things that are happening in the cosmetic industry, whether it's talking about ingredients or supplier information, events. Events that may be different chapters throughout the US and even throughout the world that would have. And we always have an end of the year meeting. We always have suppliers day. So this is definitely a great networking tool or networking program or society that can help a lot of cosmetic chemists, definitely succeed in this industry, because there's a lot of resources that come behind it. There are different chapters. I belong to the Mid-Atlantic chapter, which is Pennsylvania, Maryland, West Virginia, and Virginia, and I believe Delaware, and I'm also the vice chair. So we're always trying to educate clients, or we're always trying to educate students and make sure that there are different resources that they can obtain, whether it is about the cosmetic industry or even business. So I think this is a great society. I've been in the society for maybe 5 years, and we always hold in different like award ceremonies and different events that could, help startup businesses and small businesses as far as repacking supplies or information. So it's definitely a great resource that has helped me personally as well.
Thank you. And, that's me. Lynette, you're up.
All right. I would agree with Susan as far as mentorship. That's a huge thing. Networking and mentorship. I've stayed in touch with a lot of my preceptors or people that had a big impact on me in pharmacy school. And then so just any sort of organization related to your practice. If you see an opportunity and it interests you, just go for it. So like I said, I was trying to stay involved when I was just working as a PRN pharmacist. I joined the Ohio State Board of Pharmacy Rules and Regulations Committee, just as something extra to do to get involved. And then I would have some information on laws that were being changed and kind of bring that back to my practice and other pharmacists that I work with. Also, like if your work offers anything, like if they'll pay for you to go to a conference where you can get more information about your practice, I would do that. I mean, I know our work offers so many pharmacists to go, and I would say if they offer that to you, go for it. So just taking advantage of those types of opportunities, definitely.
Well, thank you. And thank you really very much for all of your stories. It's so very inspiring. Maybe perhaps mostly for your honesty. I think that really helps the conversation, and to share that with the students and the other alums who are present really is very special. So thank you for that. And at this time, what we would like to do is we're going to go into breakout rooms so that you have an opportunity for all of our